They said family is everything, but for Daniel, family was betrayal. No one knew the sacrifice he carried in silence, until the day of reckoning arrived. Daniel grew up in a poor but close family, where his elder brother Michael was more than just a sibling, he was his shield. From childhood, Michael carried the burden of responsibility, protecting Daniel from hardships and hiding the cruel realities of life. Even when there was little food on the table or struggles outside the home, Michael made sure Daniel never felt the full weight of suffering. For Daniel, his brother was both his guardian and his hero, someone who made sacrifices quietly without asking for recognition. But fate turned dark when the greedy relatives saw an opportunity to steal everything. One night, the fragile peace of Daniel's home was shattered when their own blood turned against them. Greedy relatives, who had long harbored envy toward the bond Michael and Daniel shared, plotted a cruel scheme. Out of envy and selfishness, they framed Michael for a crime he never committed. Lies spread like wildfire, whispered in the dark and shouted in public, until people began to believe that Michael was guilty. The betrayal chewed deeper because it came from those who shared their blood, people who should have been protectors but instead became destroyers. The night of the false accusation was filled with chaos. Authorities arrived with a warrant, dragging Michael away as neighbors watched in silence. Daniel's cries fell on deaf ears, and his family's pleas were ignored. The relatives who orchestrated the trap stood by, pretending to be innocent, while secretly savoring their victory. Michael could have defended himself, could have exposed the treachery, but he chose not to. His eyes met Daniel's, and with a heavy silence, he accepted the fate handed to him. Michael's decision was not weakness but sacrifice. He understood that if he fought back, the flames of revenge from their relatives would fall upon Daniel. The younger brother, still too young and vulnerable, would have been destroyed before he even had the chance to stand on his own. So Michael bore the weight alone, allowing the blame to consume him while shielding Daniel from the storm. For Daniel, that night became an unhealed wound, a memory carved deep into his soul. The greedy relatives wasted no more time seizing the family's wealth. With Michael gone, they stripped the household of everything: money, property, even respect in the community. Daniel and his remaining family were left with nothing but shame and grief, forced to start over while the betrayers thrived in their stolen luxury. The injustice was overwhelming, but Daniel was too powerless then to fight back. He could only hold on to the burning memory of what had been taken from them. That betrayal became the turning point in Daniel's life. From that night on, he lived not just for himself but for the brother who had sacrificed his entire future to protect him. Every struggle, every hardship, and every quiet tear only strengthened his resolve. The fire of revenge that was lit in his heart would never die, and he swore that one day, those who stole his brother's honor and their family's dignity would pay the price. It was no more longer just a promise, it was his destiny. Michael accepted the punishment without uttering a word, his silence heavier than any plea could have been. He knew that speaking out or fighting back would only drag Daniel into the storm, exposing him to the wrath of those who had already decided to destroy them. So he stood tall, his head bowed in quiet surrender, allowing himself to be led away as if he were guilty. To everyone else, it looked like weakness or shame, but Daniel understood that it was an act of protection, a choice made out of love that no one else could see. The day he disappeared felt like the end of Daniel's world. One moment his brother was there, strong and unshaken, and the next, he was gone, swallowed by the lies of their relatives and the cruelty of fate. Daniel searched for him in the weeks that followed, hoping for a letter, a sign, anything to say he was still close. But there was nothing. Michael vanished from their lives completely, as though he had erased himself so Daniel could have a chance to survive. Life without Michael was harsh. The relatives tightened their grip, ensuring the family was stripped of whatever dignity remained. Daniel endured the whispers, the stares, and the loneliness, but what hurt most was the empty space beside him where his brother once stood. Nights were the hardest, when silence filled their home, and Daniel would remember Michael's last look. A look filled not with fear but with a promise: live, even if he can't. That silent vow became Daniel's lifeline. As time passed, Daniel began to understand the true depth of his brother's sacrifice. Michael had not disappeared out of weakness but out of strength, carrying the entire burden so Daniel could grow without chains. That realization transformed Daniel. He no more longer saw himself as the helpless younger sibling but as the one chosen to carry forward what Michael had protected with his silence. From that moment, Daniel's path was no more longer about survival alone, it was about justice. He carried his brother's sacrifice in his heart, using it as both shield and weapon. Every hardship became fuel, every setback a lesson, until he was ready to face the same people who had torn their lives apart. And when the time came, Daniel would not fight only for himself, he would fight as the voice of the brother who had disappeared in silence, but whose sacrifice still echoed in every step he took. Daniel never forgot the day his brother was taken away, because it carved itself into his heart like a wound that refused to heal. He could still see Michael's calm face as he walked away in chains, refusing to resist, refusing to defend himself, as though surrendering was part of a greater plan. That haunting memory became the turning point in Daniel's life. While others saw defeat, Daniel saw sacrifice, and it ignited within him a silent promise he would never break. He swore that he would not let his brother's pain be forgotten, nor allow the people responsible to escape unpunished. Time changed him. The quiet boy grew into a strong, calculating man, someone who had learned patience, intelligence, and resilience. Every decision he made, every step he took, was guided by the memory of Michael's sacrifice. He spent years away, building a new life, gathering strength and resources, never once losing sight of his ultimate goal. He worked tirelessly, driven by a cold, burning determination that never wavered. He learned the rules of the world his enemies played in, and he became a master of the game. When Daniel finally returned, he was no more longer the helpless child the relatives once looked down upon. He had power, wealth, and wisdom on his side, and he used them with precision. He moved like a shadow, watching them from afar, studying their weaknesses, their greed, and their arrogance. They had grown comfortable in the empire they built on his family's ruins, never imagining that the boy they had cast aside would come by as their undoing. He didn't announce his return with a dramatic entrance. Instead, he began dismantling their world piece by piece, so quietly they didn't even notice until it was too late. He targeted their business deals, exposed their corruption, and he turned their allies against them. One by one, he dismantled the empire his enemies had built on lies and betrayal. He struck not with blind rage but with carefully planned moves that left them helpless and broken. They could not comprehend how the boy they once dismissed had now become the very force that was destroying them. They scrambled, trying to fight back, but every move they made was anticipated. Daniel was always one step ahead, pulling the strings from the shadows, watching them fall into the traps he had laid. Their wills crumbled, their influence vanished. Indeed, their stolen honor was exposed for the fraud it was. At the height of their desperation, when they had lost everything, Daniel finally revealed himself. He didn't come to them as a conqueror, but as a ghost from the past they thought they had buried. He gathered them all, not to gloat, but to deliver the final, crushing blow. In front of everyone, Daniel revealed the truth. He presented irrefutable evidence of their conspiracy, laying bare the web of lies they had woven to frame Michael. He made them all witness the reality they tried to bury, that Michael had sacrificed everything to save his younger brother from their cruel ambition. The weight of this revelation shattered them more than any punishment ever could. The shame was a heavier burden than the loss of their fortune. Daniel stood victorious, not in pride, but in honor of the brother who had given his life away for him. His final words cut deeper than his actions. "This was never my revenge," he sighed, his voice calm and steady. "This was Michael's justice." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving them to face the ruin they had created, finally fulfilling the promise he had made to his brother all those years ago. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.